Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome today to this amazing conversation. We've got three legends in the game, alhamdulillah. We're speaking about a really important topic, and the topic we're going to be speaking about is going to be about Black History Month, about players in the leagues, black players, what we're going to do, what we need to do to go forward. Nujum, our main aim in Nujum is to do what? Is speak about issues reflecting Muslim players and how we can support them. So this conversation is right in the middle of what we do. I'm happy to introduce on my right a legend in the sport, Radhi. Assalamu alaikum, Radhi. Welcome.
Walaikum assalam.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Next to you, we've got our ambassador here, big man himself, mashallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Towfiq. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Mashallah, and you're wearing the garment, mashallah. You've got everything on you.
Ripping, man.
Ripping, mashallah. And of course, we're speaking about a topic where we have somebody with us today who's been speaking about this for 30 plus years. Somebody who's known in the industry. Now, he doesn't like me saying that, but it's something to be proud of that we have somebody like this with us today. Troy, thanks a lot for coming with us.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Always.
All right, so the topic you guys know about, we're going to be speaking about Black History Month, but let me start off the conversation. We now have many organizations who are speaking about discrimination, okay? We've got many organizations which are taking hold of this mantelpiece. But if I could ask you, Radhi, you've been somebody who's been a professional in the game, you've been coaching in the game. Do you think a lot of change has happened in the last 30 years for especially black players?
A lot. I'm not sure about a lot till we see, till at least, black minority feels comfortable, with all things around the competition in different fields. And we speak about sport and football. Since I've been playing football, since I came to England in 2004, there is always, back feeling, which has kept me ask questions, kept me, always interrogate myself and try to find answers, but I couldn't find. Now with my evolving mindset as a football coach, been through a lot of education around it. I started to understand the psychology around it, and then I started to have my own answers. But try to engage people around me is a difficult bit, especially when it comes to other ethnicity and other and competition as well in different aspects. So what to answer your question straight away, we're still a long way there.
We're on a path though. We're on a path.
Yes, since obviously the COVID, the lockdowns, with things what happens around the world, I think started spreading out. People start to be conscious about it, but the fight is still there in terms of having that transparency in our living.
So that transparency, or we're on the journey basically, but we need it. How would you say, a bit more transparent, and we need to see real traction in it. Troy, you've been in this game for a long time, and the only reason I mentioned it was not to speak about your age, because you're still a good year, a few years still left to really provide a lot of work for us in this field. But how do you see it? Do you think that it's slightly different to Radhi, or do you actually see that we've had some growth and some potential growth?
Listen, there has been growth. We can't deny that. One of the main areas of growth is the representation on the field of play. So actually, if you think about black players, you're probably going to say that they're overrepresented in regards to the percentages that are now playing in our English game, rather than the percentage of black people in our country. So we've done very well in that aspect, but that opens up many different kind of questions, and a lot of those questions is around how black players are treated. How black players transition from coming out of the game to potentially being a coach and manager. What are the opportunities like there? The conversation around the lack of black managers, I don't hear it anymore. That's because we've tried to deal with it, we've not dealt with it, so we go silent on it. And the other aspect is obviously having leaders that look like the representation that's on the pitch. We've still not got people in boardrooms. We've still not got, highest figures working in the Premier League or the FA, the PFA, the Football League. And I think that's where we need to ask questions, because if we really want change, We want change by people that understand the struggles and the difficulties that have happened for black players way beyond the Premier League was born, because football was, being played before the Premier League was born. So the last 30 odd years, that transition from, having more representation on the field of play is great. Young people can now see their role models. They can see a pathway and a journey that they can undertake themselves. But can we say the same thing in regards to if you want to, if you're not a player, but you want to work in the industry, at the highest level, or if you are a player and transition, so I don't want to coach, I want to transition I want to go into boardrooms, I want to, where's that transition? Where's the decision making? So, I mean, I could keep you talking all day long about that, but we have to acknowledge that the best thing that's happened is that representation is out there. Our ability is shining through. And you can't always deny that ability, whereas in the past, when I was growing up, they were only allowed a few, and if they had their quota, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter if you're good enough, we've got enough.
Well, speaking about that, I mean, we've got Taofiq here who's playing professionally. Taofiq, okay, you can't speak about what it was like before, but how do you feel now in the club that you're playing in now, in how your feelings are taken into consideration, or your aspirations? Like Troy said, you see leaders, so you know where you want to go. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel inspired? Do you feel like there's leadership there for you to follow?
Yes and no. I think it's a hard question to answer with the fact where you can see, like, you'll see players like, for example, you see the Raheem Sterlings, there will be like the one that you look at and say, okay, as a black player, he highlights things and he speaks up. But then as in my aspect in my own field within my team, obviously being from London, I feel more comfortable in London because of the diversity of the city. Yeah. So you move to somewhere like, I don't know, like last year I was living in Bournemouth, you move to somewhere like Bournemouth and it's really difficult because all of a sudden you're taken out of a zone where there was actually black people actually the minority again. We're talking about highly represented in football, but that's normally because we're used to it in London, because there's a lot of London clubs, a lot of players, black players in London, they get through. So now being back in the London team, I feel really comfortable. In the starting lineup in my team, there's normally about 7 to 8 black players in the team. Whereas in last year, I was one of those 2 black players in the whole squad, let alone the starting lineup. So I think it depends on where you are. When I'm based in London or London clubs, I feel more comfortable. You can be yourself more. Everyone understands you. I think the moment you move away, it becomes more difficult, and then that's when you find the challenges become even harder for black players.
The challenges, Taofiq, is it people understanding your culture or where you come from, or actually understanding what you represent? What are the challenges?
I think all three. I think mostly culture, representation of, like, for example, black boys from London were represented as being loud and outspoken. But I think people don't understand. Sometimes they class us as being loud and outspoken because we have to fight. We always have to fight to be heard.
That's right.
So naturally, we're always having to raise our voice when we go, I'm Nigerian, so in my culture, my mum and dad could be on the phone and they're screaming, and I think they're screaming, they're not screaming. It's how Africans are. They have to feel dominated. They just have to dominate the room. So naturally, people are not understanding to that. You might move to somewhere in Manchester and they're not understanding that you're not actually being angry or passive aggressive. You're just literally being yourself. But they get in the wrong end of the stick. And once they paint you with and tarnish your name, reputation, it becomes hard an upward battle because the industry behind the scenes is so, everyone played with each other, everyone's a friend of a friend. And so your name and reputation can be tarnished just like that based off impression or first bad impression of something yourself.
So, but you think there's growth? I mean, the question of growth, the reason I asked it is because people ultimately assume that things are getting better. If you ask me for my sort of research, I actually don't think things are getting better. What I think is people are taking hold of the narrative, right? So, Radhi, you're somebody who played and now you're coaching. Do you see, and I'm going to switch the conversation slightly, do you see there's a difference between being black and Muslim? And the reason I ask that is because most people won't recognize being Muslim, a black person being Muslim. We've noticed that in some players, and I've spoken to quite a few players, and they say that people are surprised when I say I'm Muslim and black, all right? Yeah. So now we have a challenge of, like what we do in Nujum, is try to show that, you can be black and Muslim and brown as Muslim and white Muslim, but that is the next step after where we're going. So do you see that now, or do you see that actually people are opening up and it's no longer that?
I think there is a difference. People make the difference between being black, because I think black people being involved. It depends on the area. To be fair,
When you
Taofiq
came through,
mentioned, but
Radhi, when you came through, how was it for you to express your faith then? Did they understand your faith?
I think when I came, it was difficult. The thing that changed now is the social media. I think has the media itself, has a big impact on people mindset and people how they see things. And in my time, if you don't say it, people don't know it, or they don't need to know, if I can say that. Even in my country, I'm a minority, to be fair. So I'm climbing a hill since young age, and I have to explain that I'm the same as everyone. And I tell you what, I have some characteristic that can make the difference, for the organization or for the team or whatever I play. So please, can you see me as that more than maybe black? I didn't have a lot of issue in terms of being a Muslim during my career. Maybe in the background, maybe as a restriction not to get involved with other, activities, as partying and all that stuff, as alcohol and areas. But I think being black, that's probably was my challenge, since young age, and I think being black and Muslim is a huge challenge.
Yeah.
More than a black itself or Muslim itself. Okay, so because each has his own strength and weaknesses, and the weaknesses, mixed together is a big challenge, and you feel like every day you have to add more energy to explain or show to people that you're on the right, path, not different, not an exception. So it's the same thing. It's a multiplied effort every day on a daily basis to live the normal life, and that's the unfair bit, I think.
Yeah, I think have you experienced anything?
Yeah, all the time. I've always talked about how hard it was, or how hard it is being a black Muslim, based on, I walk into a room and I feel like the narrative nowadays is South Asian. They use South Asian as like, that's just, you assume they're Muslim. Yeah. Rather than like a black person, you don't assume he's Muslim, they assume I'm maybe Caribbean, or do you know what I mean? I'm Christian. They just assume it. It's the moment I say that I need to pray, the heads turn. I think, you need to what? Like, what do you do? I mean, I was time for duha. I need to pray, like, do you know what I mean? And I feel like, because of the way I am, alhamdulillah, I got the confidence to speak about it. But then I would get like questions where it comes out of like literally ignorance. I remember literally this week, I said I need to pray, and someone was like, how many times do you pray? And I said 5 times, and I was like, does that mean you have 5 gods? And I was like, what? And it was kind of like it threw me completely off, like the whole segment of.
Never heard that one.
Yeah, like, and I was like, it would be, not in a sense, I was just, but it was like, I realized again how much education is needed in the environment I'm in, because even now I feel comfortable just saying, I'm black, I'm Muslim, I need to pray. The person I'm letting know I need to pray, or the environment I'm in, there's persons in there that think I believe 5 gods because I pray 5 times. And that was when I started to realize that, okay, there's so much work that needs to be done, and understanding that I am black and Muslim means that the weakness of it, as if it's a weakness, is that it's an uphill battle.
Well, I mean, you're saying like that, I can imagine. We went to one particular club recently. We were both there. We met some young Muslim players. Yeah. And it seemed like they spend a lot of time speaking to you too, is that when they see support, they actually open up, and they've not opened up before. So you've seen that, I'm sure.
It's powerful, because again, it goes to what I was saying before, when a club doesn't reflect its playing base, let's say, when it doesn't have people that understand the journeys, that, being black first and foremost. Taofiq was the one that educated me in this space. I tell you what, because when I was sitting next to him on a panel at one of the first events that I attended, and he spoke about being a black Muslim, and it triggered me, because being black is a challenge in football anyway. We know that. You had another characteristic on that. You had your faith on that. You had your religious beliefs on that, and that's another. So being black is a massive issue for some people, for some reason, the colour of our skin is a massive issue. You had your religious status to it, and all of a sudden they're running around wild. He's not only black, he's a Muslim as well. And for me, the power that Taofiq spoke about on that event made me reflect, because I think we have a very good fit, and I'm to blame as well if blame is anything. I think we are very good in this industry in just seeing someone as one identity. And that's all we need to focus on, without the other fact of the growth of, being a religious and practicing Muslim. It's almost like it's too much to deal with. Can you be one or the other? And so the strength in the conversations that we have with the young players is, first of all, for them to realise there's someone that understands. There's someone that appreciates. And there's someone actually that allows me to speak. Yeah. Because remember, players are always spoken at, particularly in the academy environment. They're spoken at and are almost told to conform in being spoken at, But that day, again, was that whole growth of it wasn't just because, it was because there was a group of us there and a group of us that they actually felt comfortable to express themselves and be able to go and do the prayer and didn't mind who was in the room and have all that witnessed. There's so much power in that and what you want to achieve as an organisation as well, that from that day, it made me realise that actually I've got more work to do in this space.
This work to do in this space, I think we all know we've got more. That's the reason Nujum's there. The question maybe, Radhi, if I can just sort of finish off on this topic, and I know it's a very big topic and we're running through it, is what's the future? I mean, like Troy said, are we going to see black owners of football clubs? Are we going to see an active push for money to be put into the inner cities or areas where we have big population of Asians or blacks, whereby we can get them into the higher levels of management, for example? And we're not talking about discriminating. We're talking about giving, giving the rights back to that group of people. Yeah. Do you think that's where the future lies for us, or do you think we're still going to be the same? We're going to have to fight ourselves through?
Yeah. Me have a good imagination as a person. I feel like our challenge is to try to reduce the times. I think in the end, you will see some black minority, a Muslim minority in the hierarchy, in some sort of decision making, roles in bigger companies. But how long is it going to take? That's a question for me, because you feel that not in my level, you feel in higher there is a big arm wrestle on what we're trying to achieve here. People try to find excuses to what we try to express ourselves to. So we're saying there is a big issue here in terms of decisions, in terms of who you're choosing. There is a transparency here, problem of transparency. I did everything in my life to deserve that role. Someone come from behind and then take it over. You have no answers to it. There is no transparency on that aspect. So there's a lot of issues we have to challenge this. Also always see myself, what I need to do to improve, what I need to do to reach that level. So education is key. Togetherness, be part of this movement is another key. And then supporting each other, to go and see representative in this level, for them to carry on the rest. But how long is it going to take? That's my big questions. I couldn't find an answer to it. Are we capable to win that arm wrestle up there, and then impose the ourselves as a human being deserve to be there? What we need to do more than what we are trying to do now. As I said, there is a difference between before and now. There's a big difference. At least our voice, we can spread our voice through media, social media, and organizations. But is that enough to win that arm wrestle? Politically, all these sort of things that that. I don't have any answer in terms of the times, but I think we will be there.
I think that time, the solution, the quagmire we're in is time.
Yeah, you speak about
Time.
other generations, surely. I speak to my son now, and I told him you need to be, in your business, in your future, you need to be responsible on promoting yourself, because you can't rely on someone else, to make decisions on between you and another one.
So the
because that's my experience.
Yeah.
So that your experience says that, and I think we all have this experience, or you guys have this experience. I can't say I have that experience, but we all have experience, whether it's inside of football or not, whether you're in the office, whether you're in a corporation, you have ceilings, right? The question, maybe a last question for all of us to have an open discussion, is that, we want to give positive messages out, because out there may be the equivalent to a black or Asian Pep coming out, and they're looking at it, and they don't want to be sitting here thinking, well, actually, if Radhi, who's been in the game, is saying, well, I don't know how long this time's going to take. What's our points? What's our positive points? And give me a positive point. We're going to leave this message. What's your positive point for the generations that are looking and saying, well, I want to get into this. I've got the skills. Why not? Do I have to do 50 things more than the next guy? So my colour or my faith.
I think my positive message that you just understand the one. I always say to people, if I understand the room, I understand what the agenda is, I can then deal with it. It's understanding that you understand now that really and truly you have to be better. Okay. So once you are better, make sure that you are doing everything you can to achieve your dream, but you're doing it in a way where you know that you're not leaving it to no chance. You're going to be so good or whatever it is that no one can even put you parallel or in the same level with someone else. For me personally, people always ask you, what are you going to do after football?
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, I always thought about it, and people in the natural route is going to coaching. And I started to realise, I don't want to coach, but what I want to do is get in the boardroom. So I want to be a sporting director, inshallah, or someone that has decision-making power. Because this is the power now that can then change the whole infrastructure from top to bottom, because they're at the level to break the ceiling. So then that's when you start to realise the football's changed. Back in the day, you have the Alex Ferguson's or Wenger, where they could have the whole running of the club. Where now you have directors, sporting directors, where they run the club basically. They hire the manager because there's a philosophy the club needs to follow. So it's like, I feel you need to get into a position where you can flip the game, because the game right now is not working in our favour.
So this way you're speaking about, I know we're speaking about positive messages. Somebody may look at this and say, well, actually, you're doing the same as what was done to everybody else. Is that, why should you have to work 50% more? Why are you not taking on your merit in the first place? So we're just falling into the same trap as playing along. Is that true?
It's instilled in us, though, isn't it? It's been instilled in us for many, many years. We look at our role models, we look at the people that have gone before us and seen how the struggles and what they've had, but they've achieved. I think we don't celebrate enough. And because we don't celebrate enough, we're then not spreading those messages that actually look at the achievements and where they've got to and where they've come from. But you've got to remember, we are a race that absolutely has broken so many ceilings in the game. We've just got some more ceilings to break as well. So like I said, you look at our representation on the field of play, and there's no arguments there. There's no arguments, because actually our talent has shined through. So over a period of time, we're now looking at the fact that we are at whatever percentage it is now of representation on the field of play. And they celebrate us. They celebrate us. They celebrate our culture. They celebrate what we bring to the game. Let me bring at this moment Vinicius Junior into it. Okay, because he has a certain style about him. He scores a goal, he wants to dance. What's wrong with that? Everyone has a certain celebration that they have. I don't see anyone slaughtering Ronaldo's celebration. And by the way, Antoine Griezmann used to celebrate with a dance. No one called him a monkey. But what they're trying to do, they're now trying to oppress us a little bit, because our excellence is that good. So all of a sudden now it's stop dancing, and then he has a whole stadium calling him a monkey. But actually, let's not see it as a negative. Let's not see it as a negative. We can deal with that as a negative, the people that work in this space. But actually, let's celebrate him. And when they scored, he danced again, in their face, right in front of them. You had to see when the camera panned, if you ever paused, you would have seen the anger on their faces. Not because he scored, but because he danced again. I mean, come on. So now let's celebrate the way that we pronounce ourselves onto the world stage. We can do that. Now let's go into the dugouts and the likes of this. Let's see this guy in prominent positions. Let's see him being a role model to thinking that one day I might be a sporting director. What a role change that would be, by the way. Do you know what I mean? So let's celebrate and provide opportunities. We are the people that can do that, to inspire. Because remember, he's still young. Don't put him in our age bracket, because his career would have done. But he's still young, and he's young enough to then have an impression on others who are growing up through the game.
Let's just celebrate one thing. Let's celebrate by saying thank you, Troy and Radhi, for being special advisors to Nujum. So that's the celebration we're going to have. And we hope that you guys coming on board, advising, not just Nujum. It's not really about Nujum, to be honest with you. It's about where we're taking this journey for everybody else. So let's celebrate that. And thanks a lot, Taofiq. We're all celebrating the fact that you're here as an ambassador. Somebody hopefully is a role model to others and is going to be that sporting director. So thanks a lot, guys. Jazakallah khair for coming and joining in this conversation with Nujum. Look out for the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.